Louisiana can rely on a serious pot of money to restore its coastline.
Billions of dollars are rolling in from the 2010 Gulf oil spill disaster, and tonight, John Snell looks at how the first batch of money has been spent, what's left, and how the state plans to spend the rest.
Drone video provides a pelican's eye view of newly restored Elmer's Island. This state-owned beach makes up one segment of Louisiana's largest coastal restoration project, over $200 million.
There has never been a project like this in Louisiana history. It's 13 miles of beach, or think of it this way, enough sand to fill the Superdome twice.
Brought to you by BP. Louisiana's largest individual environmental disaster provided the funding to finish restoring the Caminada headland. 7 years ago, a blowout of BP's Macondo well killed 11 workers, spewed millions of gallons of crude, and soiled hundreds of miles of beach and wetlands. As a result, Gulf Coast states from Texas to Florida share in $26 billion. That includes separate pots of money for criminal penalties, a civil court settlement, and damage to natural resources. Louisiana's share, at least $7.2 billion over 15 years. The state already has spent or dedicated a little over $1 billion, leaving over $6 billion for coastal projects.
We have the opportunity to plan our future with a guaranteed income flow to do the work, something that most communities never have.
So far, the bulk of the money has fueled dredging projects, mining sand and sediment and delivering it by pipeline to instantly build land. Barrier islands like Shell Island in Plaquemines Parish. The Lake Hermitage project on the west bank of Plaquemines turned 100 acres of mostly open water into marsh.
The bulk of it has to be spent on ecosystem restoration, so looking at putting us back to pre-oil spill where we were and restoring for those injuries from the oil spill.
The next round of money goes to half a dozen projects. It'll repair bird habitat on Queen Bess Island in Jefferson Parish and Rabbit Island, the westernmost pelican rookery in Louisiana, marsh creation in St. Bernard Parish, shoreline protection for the Jean Lafitte National Park, ridges and marsh in Terrebonne and Plaquemines parishes. One pot of money requires approval of a state and federal task force, another the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Foundation. As Louisiana made its first case for spending the money, state officials say they enjoyed one key advantage over the other states. Louisiana's Coastal Master Plan, the 5-year blueprint for restoration.
Louisiana was really ahead of the game compared to the other states and even some of the federal agencies. That master plan really did serve us well.
By far, the most ambitious and most controversial part of the master plan involves the state's effort to mimic the Mississippi River's land-building power. Planners hope to use $2 billion of the BP dollars to build the first 2 sediment diversions, punching holes levee and channeling river water into bays and marsh on a scale that dwarfs existing freshwater diversions like this one on the West Bank.
Filling all of this area in.
Coastal activist Foster Crapell already sees results from the small siphons near his home.
When they do run it, it brings a lot of fresh water and sediment out here and is growing all this grass along the banks.
A set of pipes draws from the river, runs under the highway and into the marsh, like straws taking a drink of fresh water.
Now it filled in some canals that I used to be able to get through a flatboat when I got here. Now that canal is completely filled in and there's grass growing in it.
Already the state has dedicated a couple $100 million to plan, engineer, and design the first 2 big diversions. Mid-Barataria on the west bank of Plaquemines Parish and Mid-Breton on the east bank. Fishermen and others in the seafood industry are in full-scale panic at the notion of sending that much fresh water their way. On Grand Isle, Dean Blanchard is among the skeptics.
Yeah, the diversion might work if you didn't have bulkheads all the way up by St. Louis, Missouri. In the old days, everything used to go in the river. They call it the muddy Mississippi. Now people don't let their land erode in the river no more.
Critics argue we're not talking about Mark Twain's river. The modern, polluted Mississippi carries a fraction of its historic sediment load, requiring too much time, they say, to build land.
We're going to all be dead. Who's going to be there to tell them it didn't work?
We're certainly very concerned about the details. The old saying, the devil's in the details.
Plaquemines Parish President Amos Cormier argues the state must take into account how the diversions would be operated and their effect on local communities.
90 years ago, when the complete leveeing off of the river was done, there wasn't a lot of consulting of the local people.
State planners point out they're using the best science available to pick strategic spots for the diversions and maximize the benefits of the sediment. Must navigate a complicated approval process that has nothing to do with the oil spill, involving everything from the effects on navigation to the hundreds of bottlenose dolphins that live in Barataria Bay. The Corps of Engineers won't promise a decision on a permit for several years. Even many supporters concede the state needs to factor in the needs of the fishermen when it operates the diversions. But they argue new land built through dredging will simply melt away unless the river reconnects with the marsh.
It is the only force of scale that we have, that we can use, that can somehow match up against the forces that are against us.
We're accountable for these funds, and we understand that, and we understand our responsibility to really spend our money wisely.
It's only a moment in time, but we have it. We have to take full advantage of it to make sure the community is making these decisions. We can do that.
After the diversions, the state estimates just shy of $5 billion of spill money will remain. Nowhere close enough to piece back together Louisiana's tattered coastline, but an unexpected down payment. John Snell, Fox 8 News.
It's impossible to say exactly how much the BP dollars will total. One pot of money administered by state and federal trustees sets up a competition among Gulf states. Louisiana got $52 million from that pot in